abuse or mental health or physical health issues. This can also include intensely demanding periods at work or school, which I'm sure we're all feeling with all the recent changes that we have right now in place. It can also include breakup, divorces, or even financial struggles. So it is important to note that emergencies and crises are challenging times, but the challenging times also really do refer to our everyday life struggles. So despite the differences between these three terms, they are closely interconnected and they do overlap significantly. And if we haven't already, we can expect to face tough times in our lifetime. It's just one of those things that comes with being human. So this isn't meant to provoke anxiety or to promote a doom and gloom outlook. Instead, we would just like to have this discussion that allows us to prepare ourselves so that when challenging times like this do show up, we're in a better position to take action and to take care of ourselves. So while it's understandable also that you may think that just pretending you're not affected by a crisis builds resilience, research shows that allowing yourself to feel and express your feelings is actually more helpful if you want to build that resilience. So some of us may have been told that having feelings, especially strong negative feelings like sadness or anger or fear, is actually a bad thing. But however, psychologists and neurobiologists tell us that having feelings across the emotional spectrum is just an inherent natural part of being human. So it's wired into our biological makeup. And in the context of coping with a crisis, the key point here is that it's normal and healthy to feel upset when we're going through a time of intense difficulty, trouble, or even danger. So with that being said, we would like to open up the chat box for responses to a couple questions. So our first one here, what are some common emotions that you are personally experiencing right now during COVID-19? And if you could add that to the chat box, and Ellen will help with sharing out our answers.
Okay, Anna, we have uncertainty, frustration.
Perfect, thank you.
Sadness, annoyance at the lack of scientific understanding.
Very much so. There's so many unknowns in there right now.
Stunned, dumbfounded, terrified, amazed, frustration. Definitely frustration at not being able to support all my students, boredom, bored, frustration, irritated, missing my kids, so bored.
It is a whole new world for all of us, and I'm sure going through this, we are all having so many different ranges of emotion, even within one single day, and that can be in our personal lives and professional lives, and definitely, like someone mentioned, just that uncertainty is huge right now for everybody. Wanted to move to our next question as well, and thank you for those responses. What are some of the common emotions that your students and families are also experiencing? What have you seen? What have you heard? What are you trying to support?
Okay. We have anxiety, fear, frustration, disappointment, feeling like a failure at homeschooling, sadness, I got this, loneliness, depression,
Yeah.
curiosity, doubt, parents are overwhelmed, loss, especially from parent with seniors, financial implications for families. We just finished reading a book about an epidemic, so those students have been concerned for some time. I spend a lot of time online with these students. Disconnected, grief, loss, stressed, parent contact much higher.
And I'm sure many of us on there too, I think it's kind of just a natural feeling and emotion with this too. We We tend to take on a lot of those emotions or stressors for our students or for our families. Just as teachers, administrators, anyone working in education, that's something that we do and have to find our balance with too. And I'm very happy to see all those responses. There's a lot of common ground between everybody, but there also shows that everyone on here is very in tune and well aware of what's happening and checking out and reaching out to their students too. So it's wonderful. Now, do we have any last comments in there that were added in?
It's like we had 2 more come in, overwhelmed. Some of our parents are terrified and some are mad at us for their students being at home.
Okay. Which all makes sense too. There's so much uncertainty and we're not sure what the answers yet. We don't know where we're going. So all those emotions are coming out in so many directions. So it's very understandable. So thank you everyone for sharing. And then in addition to what was listed, and some might be some overlap, we did want to give you some typical reactions that might also take place during a crisis. And as we know, of course, everyone, every student, every family is going to react very differently to the stressful situations, especially something like COVID, that was requiring social distancing and quarantine and isolation, something very new to everybody. So a lot of different emotions come up. So during this time, people might feel some anxiety, worry, or fear. It could be related to your own health status or health status of others. The experience of monitoring yourself or being monitored by others for signs and symptoms of a disease is also fairly new to a lot of us. There's often right now time taken from work and the potential loss of income and job security, which in and of itself is a challenging time in crisis. There are challenges of securing things you need, such as grocery and personal care items that can definitely have a huge shift in your emotions. There's concerns about being able to effectively care for children or others in your care, and also for those that you can't be around that have to be cared for by someone else. So in any crisis and challenging time, just like this COVID time, there is also a lot of uncertainty, frustration. You're going to see loneliness and anger about how long we have to remain in this situation. And as some of the people mentioned in chat box, just the uncertainty about the whole future and all the next steps. So, but there is some strong research that does say one of the reasons we see a high number of depression, anxiety, outburst, and disengagements in students and our own children can also be because of the absence of the basic needs like safety, belonging, and care. And this is happening to both students and adults, and it's important that we have access to strategies and tools to cope and manage these emotions. And also want to point out too, as educators, we do quite a bit to take care of our students and the families, but we have to do equally important and have that balance of taking care of ourselves as well. Here's a few some tips and some strategies for responding to the crisis. So it is important that as adults, we are communicating honestly and openly, and that we're working together to create a new normal with our students, and that we're communicating with each other as educators and teammates as well. Some of the most important things you can do is definitely staying calm and reassuring your children. As we all know, a lot of them are going to build off our cues and responses as well. Talk to your children or students about what's happening in a way that they understand. Need it to be age appropriate and emotionally appropriate. Give them opportunities to talk about what they're going through. So encourage them to share concerns, ask questions, be open and honest with your answers. And again, age appropriate. Giving them correct information and coming from you is going to be very helpful and supportive for all of them. Another big one is just so important for parents, teachers, any adults in a child or student's life to work together so they can share information about how children are coping after the traumatic event. It's going to look very different for every student. It's going to look very different for every adult, but having that network of support is going to be huge. And also to help create a sense of structure. And once schools open again, trying to help the students and staff to get back to regular activities. In the meantime, when you're working with families and even in your own family, some of these other strategies could help with even sticking to a schedule, like what time you're getting up or showering, or what time you're working on school, or what time you're doing dinner. You can make dinner a transition time of when your family's getting together and talking, or getting that time just to slow down. It's important to reiterate to your students and families and for yourself to also have that downtime, that you can just kind of check out and take care of yourself for a bit, and really try to focus on the positives and moving on with different plans and goals. I do want to note, though, that during this time and while you're having conversations and questions, this is also a big time to really watch for signs in your children, students, family, teammates, everybody, just to really watch to see if anyone may need more mental health support as well. Okay. So I am now going to hand over this next section over to Olivia.
So hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. This is a very important topic, and we are very excited to have so many participants today. So the good news amidst all of the focus on tough times is the fact that humans have a great capacity for resilience. So at this time, I'd like you guys to just think for a second, and in your chat box, post a definition of what resilience means to you, and Alan will share out.
Okay, overcoming challenges in tough times, able to bounce back, ability to cope during difficult times, hopeful, ability to bounce back, feeling inspired by how quickly students might fail or make a mistake and quickly pivot and rebound, to roll with the punches, knowing that I'm capable of getting through whatever life brings, having enough grit, develop grit to make it through, ability to stay strong, how to cope in setbacks, and cultivating and keeping access to tools for recovery.
Thank you. Those are some great definitions. Basically, the ability, resiliency is the ability to recover, adapt, and bounce back from adversity, crisis, or trauma. Over the course of our existence, humans have bounced back from all kinds of hard times, as we know. Just think about all that you've learned in history class about tough times that the humans have been through: wars, widespread disease, natural disasters, economic hardship like the Great Depression, and much more. None of that was easy, and yet we're all still here. And on a personal level, you and your family and your friends have probably been through and bounced back from hard times as well. The fact that you are here is a testament to your resilience. It's important that as adults, we are emotionally resilient for ourselves so that we can support our loved ones and students during these difficult times. We need to be able to build the ability to recover, adapt, and bounce back. Someone had mentioned earlier about the anxiety that being a parent of seniors, the class of 2020. I am personally affected by that as well. And this class was born during the time of 9/11. And now they're facing a pandemic when it's time for them to graduate. So the resilience that's being built in this generation, we will definitely see, I believe wholeheartedly, in the future. So in order to maintain that resiliency, there are some definitely coping strategies that helps with that. Now that we know what resilience is and why it's important, we're going to turn our attention on the how. It's one thing to toss around a word like resilience, but it's another thing to actually know what specifically we can do to help us be more resilient. So on the screen, you can see some emotions, a feeling that you might feel or imagine how you would feel, and then the strategy on ways to cope with that. So if someone is feeling sad, an example to help them through that, they could write in a journal, allow themselves to cry, draw or paint a picture that expresses sadness. This is a really good strategy, especially for our younger children who aren't able to understand what they're going through, and they can get those out in drawings and paintings. If you're feeling anxious, take deep breaths and say calming words to yourself, participate in yoga, and clean, always one of my favorites. If you're feeling lonely, cuddle with your dog or a family pet, call a friend, and read a familiar book or watch a familiar movie. It's important to note that feeling disconnected doesn't mean that you aren't being resilient. This is part of the process of bouncing back to come back even stronger. Processing and managing emotions are examples of important strategies towards recovery. Some other strategies that you could use with your students, families, even adults, are mindfulness minutes, where you take a minute to just reflect and process, and just identifying and sharing maybe how you feel with emojis. You know, that's a real good one for our students of today, because emojis are part of their world, definitely. Some additional coping strategies and examples that we have here are, the first one is write a list of what you can't and can control. So for example, some things that we can't control right now is the duration of the virus, the global spread. We have no ideas what's going to happen from our leaders. We're getting mixed messages from the top down, and that's not something we can control. We cannot control the impact it's having on the economy, the travel restrictions. Those are things that we cannot control. But some things that we can control are connecting with our loved ones, you know, using positive words, paying attention, noticing things with them, going outside and exercising, eating healthy, practicing breathing skills. Those are things we can control, that we do have control over. Staying connected with your friends and family is huge. And this day and age, having the access to FaceTime and Zoom has probably really made a difference during this crisis, because we can still see each other, we can still communicate with each other. Participating in family projects, getting creative. I've spoken to so many people that have done some wonderful things with their children at home, from painting rocks and delivering them on St. Patrick's Day to families on the porch, pretending to be leprechauns, to writing little note cards and sending them in the mail, just saying, I love you. Those are great projects that you can do just at home with your children. Decluttering and donating. So, you know, springtime is usually spring cleaning, and what a better time to do that and then donate back to the community. My father is a painter, and he was going through his stuff, and he had 50 N95 masks. Not sure how he acquired those, but he had them, and he immediately donated them back to some of the local hospitals here in Trinidad. Get outside, do video workouts, create a video blog or scrapbook of life during COVID-19, do some virtual tours, and get plenty of sleep. So for just a few minutes, again, I'd like you guys to think of some ways that you personally have helped students build coping strategies, whether at home, in your community, or through your school district, and post those in the chat room.
Okay, I did a virtual lesson on resilience, reconnect with former students, friends, and colleagues. My daughter and I are starting to do puzzles together. Encourage students to develop a hobby. I also suggested to some students that they could do their own Zoom with friends. I connect with my mentee through text and email. I mailed her relevant text on US history, in parentheses stamped. I work one-on-one with a student who was struggling before this. I give him positive reinforcement all the time. Google Meet with students and parents. And then having predictable schedules to help with anxiety.
Those are all great examples. I really in particular like the one with scheduling, and I know Anna made a reference to that during her slides. You know, having a schedule for your children right now, or even encouraging, if you're a teacher and educator, to have your parents have schedules for their children is really something that will keep children more focused and make them feel like things aren't so topsy-turvy right now, because the day is still normal with getting up, having breakfast, doing some schoolwork, maybe doing a community service project or whatever that might be. So for those of you who are in my age group, you'll all remember Mr. Rogers. One of the favorite quotes that he has is, "When I was a boy, I would see scary things in the news. My mother would say to me, 'Look for helpers. You will always find people who are helping.' To this day, especially in times of disaster, I remember my mother's words, and I'm always comforted by realizing that there are still so many helpers, so many caring people in this world." It's important that as educators, we encourage students to think about being helpers in their own communities, to be part of the hero stories. We need an initiative from young people because they are the up and coming generation. So here are some everyday heroes that we have right here in Colorado. Our first one here is a worker who was delivering something at a home, and the person left out free toilet paper and hand sanitizer and basically said, "Take one if you need one." He was so taken back that he couldn't believe that was happening. The next picture there shows delivery services to other parts of the state with protective supplies from healthcare workers, and that was right here in Holyoke, Colorado. The one below there is signs of thank you and gratitude towards our frontline workers. And again, that was in Colorado Springs at UC Health Medical Center. And to the last one to the right there is a bookstore delivering goodie bags with books to people in their neighborhood. And that was in Boulder, Colorado. It's always important to try to encourage students to take some action directly related to the disaster so they feel a sense of control and they can get creative in engaging with those around them. So being a part of community support, you know, is very important for our young. And I've seen wonderful stories on the news of students making masks and again, sending out notes. And I saw this one story of little girls making hearts and mailing them to healthcare professionals at the local hospital. So some things that we want to think about is, you know, having a birthday party parade for a classmate. So not just doing it for themselves, but thinking about others. Putting together a fundraiser for police or firefighters and nurses. Picking up trash around the neighborhood. Volunteer online. Design inspiring signs or a thank you to a frontline worker and put it in your window or your front lawn. Conduct a virtual prom or dance or talent show. So again, I'd like for the attendees to have an opportunity to share some of the things that have been happening in their community that students have been at the forefront of, and please share those in the chat room.
Teacher parade. One of my sixth graders had a birthday party parade this past weekend. Virtual Yazzie games and board games. Virtual 5K. Oh, that's cool. I'd like to learn more about that. Streaming workouts and yoga.
Awesome, thank you. Those are some wonderful ideas. It's just so important that our students rise above and demonstrate the kind hearts that we know they have. Another idea to do support for our students is to create an online platform sponsored by the local school or district website for students to feel connected, talk about what they're feeling, and have students think about a role that they can play. It's important that we would have leadership monitor so they can respond with positive notes and our safety measures, etc. We want to ensure that students have a platform for this process. However, it should be something sponsored by the local schools or districts, so it can be monitored by the leadership. So during this time, gratitude rises to the top. And just looking at these pictures warms my heart immensely. Life has changed completely for all of us during this crisis. And there's a lot of ways that life became much harder. Maybe our family struggled with money. Maybe people that we love got sick and even died. Maybe we had a hard time being stuck at home all the time, or tensions were high in our household. Maybe we really missed seeing people who were important to us. We struggled with the boredom or fear of loneliness. There are and were lots of ways in which this crisis has really been difficult. That being said, research shows that when we reframe difficult times using the language of gratitude, it can help to heal and even redeem troubling memories. So just take a moment to process that. And I'd like you guys to share in the chat room some of the moments that have occurred during this crisis that you are truly grateful for.
More time as a family, more family time, being employed, my job, stay healthy, cooking at home. I'm grateful for more time with my 17-year-old cat and to be employed. My neighbors ask if I need anything. I'm single, live alone, and I'm 72. New recipes, reaching out to friends I haven't talked to in a while. Write letters to the elderly folks. My community has stayed together to support us and our kids.
And one area that I'm extremely grateful for myself personally is being able to be with my daughters. Like I said, they are seniors, and I've been able to spend much more time with them. They're very involved in school and rarely saw them, and now I'm with them all the time, and it's been awesome because hopefully they'll be able to go off to college in the fall. The human connection is one that we can never let go of. The grandfather seeing the baby for the first time, the men singing to people in the streets, the little girls telling people to get well, and of course the store worker letting those people that are in an age group that may be at risk come in before others. So things to think about, definitely. So in summary, these are some key points from today's session. It's very normal and healthy to feel upset when we're going through a time of intense difficulty, trouble, or danger. Amidst all of this focus on tough times is the fact that humans have a great capacity for resilience. We are tough, definitely. Coping with strategies such as processing emotions help to build that resiliency. So using those strategies is very important, whether it's through talk, drawing, journal writing, reflection, mindfulness, whatever that may be. And encouraging students to think about being helpers and heroes within their community during this time. Another opportunity for you guys to participate in the chat box. If you could please post one takeaway that you have from today that you can use personally with your students, that would be awesome.
Okay, from Gwen. I want to let folks know about a weekly online teen mindfulness group. The two facilitators are therapists and mindfulness coaches in Boulder with the nonprofit Inward Bound Mindfulness Education. Definitely the journaling, engaging students in being part of the positive response, Reframing the current experience to gratitude will help with reducing the traumatic impact of crisis. Donations accepted. I'm going to look into having the COVID school forum.
Wonderful. Thank you all for sharing. Those are all great thoughts and great activities and strategies that you can definitely use. At this time, I'm going to give it back to Ellen.
Okay, thank you, Olivia. So thank you so much to our speakers, Olivia and Anna. Following this webinar, we will send an email to all attendees that will include a link to download our new Coping with Crisis middle and high school units. Each unit includes 5 lessons and a final project. And when you're sent that link, you'll also be taken to all of the other curriculum that we have available, including things like mindfulness and other SEL topics that we discussed today. If you are interested in additional COVID-19 resources and offerings, please type this URL in your web browser or click the link listed on this slide when we send it out in our follow-up email. So we all encourage you to register for our next forum. That's going to take place on Tuesday, May 19th from 3:30 to 4:30 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. You can register on our COVID-19 response page or click the yellow box to register when you receive the slides. So we are now going to open up the floor to take a couple of questions from our attendees. And please feel free to add any questions or wonderings or ideas that you have for our speakers in the chat box feature, and I will share those out loud with Anna and Olivia. Okay, Brandon is asking, what should I do when I can't get a hold of some of my students?
So thank you for the question, Brandon. I think it's important that you exercise every opportunity you have. So get creative, obviously phone, email, texting. And if it means you have to go to the door and ring the doorbell and step 6 feet back just to see if they're okay, then that's what you do. Notes, mail, any way possible to communicate with them. Reach out to their friends and see if they have heard from them. That way you can know that everything's going okay.
Okay.
We've had, I'm sorry, we had a conversation in past with a few teachers who had the same concern as Brandon's, and they found it helped too when you're reaching out to families that it's not coming from the academic standpoint. It's not reaching out saying, I noticed none of the math is getting done, or you're not logging on for this video. It's more of questions of reaching out saying, we're just checking in, want to see if you're okay, what can we help you with? And that just recently has seemed to break down some of those barriers a little bit, so it's not almost like an attack or what's missing, but how can we support? And that may help as well.
Okay, another question we have is from Wendy. How do you help students and parents balance struggling with emotions and getting assigned work done?
I can speak to this on a personal level as a parent of a student. So my son does have anxiety and has some of the emotional pieces in there. And I, as a former teacher, really wanted to get all the assignments done. But it's really doing that mindfulness, as people mentioned, doing the health and wellness, getting that emotional piece in check first, and the academic second is what we've had to do. I set schedules during the day we eat lunch at the same time, he ate lunch at school, and kind of take breaks when he had recess breaks, and do the best we can with that to be as consistent as possible. But in just my own personal opinion, we've got to have the health and wellness and those wonderful positive mindsets before we can even tackle the academic side.
And on the academic side, just making those activities creative, fun, purposeful, relevant. If your students or children are getting packets from teachers and it's, the same skill over and over again, pick and choose, do some, use boards, go outside, do a scavenger hunt. I mean, just different ways to make the learning more real to them and relevant instead of busy work. Have fun with the learning.
Any other questions from our attendees? Okay. This is from Allison. If we were to do one thing to support our students now and over the summer, what would you do?
I would ensure that their emotional state is on track, relating to them first, like Anna said, making sure that they're okay, that they've got some goals set for themselves, that they've got a schedule in place, and just making sure that they have some support groups, that they're connecting somehow with someone, that they're not on an island by themselves. Encouraging them to set those goals for themselves and know that this too shall pass. So that way they don't feel that they're looking at a tunnel that's never ending.
Okay, we have another question from Adriana. How can you protect yourself from all the stress that families can pass to you? Boundaries.
I think that's a very great question, and I think you're kind of answering it in that question also of just having the boundaries. I think having a set time that you're going to be able to reach out to families, take care of families, because you also have to put yourself in your families first also, so you don't get burnt out. So you have to realize that you're also going through this crisis and these changes, and you're not going to be able to fix everything for everybody. So I think a lot of people are setting, these are the office hours I'm available, or these are the times that I can take phone calls, or when I can visit somebody. And I think setting boundaries like that would really help take some of that stress off, and so you have an endpoint for each day. Basically, setting the schedule for yourself so you have more control.
And we had Patricia, it looks like, respond to, I believe it was Allison's question about if we were to do one thing to support our students now and over the summer, what would you do? And she had some great ideas: journaling, reaching out to friends in social groups, going outside, encourage them to grow their own food, so maybe starting a garden, encourage them to clean the house and do chores. That's a big one, and helpful for us parents. Okay. Any other questions from our attendees? Okay. Well, please know that if you have any further questions, that we highly encourage you to email our speakers from today. And you can also contact Generation Schools by going to our website if you have any remaining questions. And Kat, if you just go back to the previous slide really quickly, we just wanted to say thank you again so much for participating in today's session. A couple of quick reminders: today's slides and recording will be emailed to you within 24 hours after the webinar. We're always trying to improve our program, so please complete the feedback survey at the end of this session and tell us how we did. We will also include the survey link in the follow-up email. So here is our speaker's contact information again. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Thank you again so much for joining us, and we hope everyone has a great day.